Besides the obvious, which is that Hashem gave us the Torah at the giving at Shavuos, there's something else that happened. And when we work out what the something else is, and more importantly, what it means, then we'll appreciate why it's only a one-day Yom Tov, and we'll appreciate why you could bring the sacrifices for Shavuos later in the week, even though it's no longer Yom Tov. Okay? Because we said, you've always got to discover, you've got to work out what is the main theme of a Yom Tov. Once you understand the main theme, then all the details of that Yom Tov will work with the theme. So when you know that the main theme of Pesach is the Exodus from Egypt, then all of the things, the mitzvahs, the traditions, the rituals associated with Pesach are all going to speak to that theme, which is the theme of Exodus. So when you find the main theme of the holiday of Shavuos, then you'll know how the whole holiday works. It's easy to say that the theme is the giving of the Torah. That's quite obvious, but it's not the full story. So you know, every day, or at least every morning, before you say the Shema, there's a section of the davening which is called the blessings of the Shema. Right? There's two blessings that you say before the Shema, and there's one blessing that you say after the Shema. In the morning, in the evening, it's 2 and 2. Just before the Shema, almost 2 lines before the Shema, there's an expression that we say in that prayer, in that brocha. And the expression goes like this: Uvanu v'charta mikol am v'loshain. And Hashem, you chose us from all the other nations. When? When did that happen? Uvanu v'charta, that you chose us from all other nations. When did that occur? So now you're going to have to look in the Torah, and you could shortcut the process because you could look in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, because it tells you that when you say that line, you're supposed to have a specific intention. Did you know this? There's a specific intention you're supposed to have when you say that line, that Hashem, you chose us from the nations of the world. What's the intention? At that point, you're supposed to recall, it's not going to take very long, you're supposed to recall the event of the giving of the Torah. Because when Hashem gave us the Torah, that's when Hashem made us into the chosen nation. This whole idea of a chosen nation begins at that point in time. How do I know that? Okay, let's go back to the story of the giving of the Torah. And we read this on Shavuos morning because even though it's recorded just before the Torah was given, but it's part of the presentation of the giving of the Torah. There's a whole lot of back and forth between Hashem and Moshe and the Jewish people. So Hashem gives Moshe instructions that he has to give the Jewish people. The Jewish people then have to give feedback, which Moshe has to give to Hashem. So there's a conversation that's going back and forth. And in that conversation, Hashem says to Moshe, tell the Jewish people, Va'atem tiyu li, you will be for me, Mamleches kohanim, a kingdom of priests, V'goy kadosh, and a holy nation. Also, in that conversation, Hashem says, V'yisem li segula mikol ha'amim. You will be a treasure for me amongst all the other nations. So we have these two references at the time of the giving of the Torah. This is where Hashem says, you're going to be the chosen nation. So what is the celebration of Shavuos? Not just that Hashem gave us the Torah, but more specifically, that in giving us the Torah, He made us His chosen people. Now, you could, if you give it some thought, you could have a big question on this. Hang on a second. So you're telling me that the first time that Hashem refers to the Jewish people as chosen is at the foot of Mount Sinai. What about when Hashem sent Moshe to speak to Pharaoh? And he said, you've got to let my people go. Now, let's pause for a second. What does that mean, my people? Does that not mean that we're already chosen? So let my people go. It doesn't say, let those people go. It doesn't say, let the people go. It said, let my people go. So surely that means He already chose us to be His people. So what's the new insight or the new perspective that happens at Mount Sinai, that we become so-called chosen? Plus, when Moshe is sent to Pharaoh, his opening line is, Hashem says to him, go tell Pharaoh, Beni Bechori Yisrael, the Jewish people are my firstborn son. Now, it's not like a human family where the firstborn son is chronological, the son who was born first. Obviously, there's no such concept because the Jewish nation was not the first nation on earth. So B'nai B'chori Israel is a designation. It's Hashem saying, you have to know how much I value these people, that I've chosen to consider them my firstborn son. So there again, looks like the idea of being chosen happened quite a bit before the giving of the Torah, while the Jews were still in Egypt. So what do we mean when we say that the holiday of Shavuos is the time of the choosing of the Jewish people as his nation? So to best understand this, we need to understand what does it mean to make a choice. Now's where the fun begins. What does it mean to make a choice? In Hebrew, the word that we use for a choice is bechira. Bechira is a choice. That's why the words that we say in the davening just before Shema are uvanu vacharta. Vacharta means to choose. How do you say elections in Israel? Bechirot. Which basically means you're choosing the candidate that you want for the particular position. It means to choose. So generally, when we speak about choice in a more philosophical sense, we often add the adjective chofshis, bechira chofshis, which we translate as free choice. Free choice. Now, free choice is a very important topic because we always talk about the fact that that's what's so great about being a human, is that we have free choice. And that's why we could be rewarded for making the right choices, and God forbid we could be punished for making the wrong choices, because they are our choices. Bechira chofshis. It's a free choice. But the question is, what do we mean when we say free choice? Number one. And number two, how many of our choices are free choices? So let's understand. When you say free choice, firstly, what does the word free over there mean? Because we live in a consumerist society, which means usually if the adjective free is before something, it means you don't have to pay for it. Right? That's usually what it means. That's why when people go out protesting free this and free that, you could say, I'll take two. Right? So what do we mean when we say free choice? That the choice comes with no cost? Is that what we mean with free choice? So the adjective free in the expression free choice means free from influence. A free choice is a choice that is free from influence. So let's understand. Let's look at some of the choices that we make during the course of a day, and let's work out how many of those choices are really free choices. Let's start right at this morning, where we are right now. Did you have a free choice what to wear today?
Yes.
You're going to say yes, but you didn't.
Well, no, it's cold.
You didn't, exactly. The weather will dictate the range of your choices. Correct. So the first limitation, just not in any specific order, but first limitation we'll identify is the weather. So the weather is going to limit your choices. So that's now no longer a free choice. You have to wear something that is warm enough for the weather. Then the second constraint on your free choice is, where are you going? And you have to now dress appropriately for where you're going. So that puts another limit on your choice. The third constraint on your choice is what you currently have in your cupboard. So that doesn't mean what you own. Could be that you have a nice suit that you want to wear, but it's at the dry cleaners. So that's also going to limit your choice. So by the time you put on your clothes in the morning, it's not truly a free choice. There are a whole lot of influences that decided that choice for you. And then you had a range within that, and that's kind of where your free choice came in. Am I going to wear that jersey or that jacket? That's kind of the... Okay, so it's not such a free choice, right? Let's use another example. Now you get dressed, you want to eat breakfast. It's your free choice what to have for breakfast, right? You could choose whatever you want to have for breakfast.
If you shop.
But it's not really a free choice, because first of all, your wife might tell you, you need to eat this and that for breakfast because it's going to be more healthy. So that's going to eliminate a whole lot of choice. Or perhaps you've decided to sign up for a diet, and now that limits your choice. Or it could be because you decided you're going to have cereal for breakfast, you open the cupboard, and the cereal's not there. It's finished. Or it could be that you woke up in the morning feeling a little bit bloated from last night's meal, so now you have to have a light breakfast. Or it could be you didn't eat properly last night, so you woke up ravenous, so you need to have a different breakfast. there are a whole lot of influences over what kind of a breakfast you're going to have. It's not a fully free choice. So here's the question then. Do we as humans really have free choice? Because there are so many limiting factors that we don't control that come into our lives that if affect and influence our choices. Ultimately, do we really have a free choice about anything? And once you start to think about it, the whole notion of free choice becomes a little less exciting than it seemed originally, because there are external influences. But let's take it a step further. Let's say that you have a friend and you chose to be friendly with that person. Was that a free choice? In other words, I decided that this is somebody that I want to be friends with. Is that accurate? Could I say that? No. Because the fact that I've chosen to be friendly with that person is because of certain parts of their character that appeal to me. So the reason I want to be their friend is because I like things about them. So it's not that I'm choosing arbitrarily to make them my friend. They're basically, obviously unconsciously, selling themselves to me. They're illustrating certain parts of their personality that I like. So if I like something, it's not my free choice to take it. It's an influenced choice to take it. Essentially, it's like the chocolate and vanilla story, right? So if you are offered ice cream, so if you offer a child broccoli or ice cream, that's not a free choice. But if you offer somebody chocolate or vanilla, that could be, it's not the deepest, most profound version of free choice, but that could be a personal taste. So this is no longer about the fact that vanilla sells itself to me, or chocolate sells itself to me. That is a personal taste. So it's not the most profound way to express free choice, but you could say that might well be a free choice. Chocolate or broccoli, that's not necessarily a free choice. There's an external influence. You understand where I'm going with this? So generally speaking, when we talk about the idea of making a choice, usually the reason we're making a choice is because something or someone is basically making the choice for us. Right, exactly. Yeah. Chicken or beef, right? Exactly. Or yes or no. Right? So if you go into a car dealership and you end up buying a car, you think you've made a choice. But the reality is it's the features of that particular car or the way in which the salesperson presented those features that actually sold you the choice rather than you making the choice. So we have to know how to distinguish between something that we are choosing and in our own independent personal capacity versus something that is being presented to us, sold to us, offered to us, explained to us, and then because of that influence we make that choice. So actually, when you boil it down, very infrequently do we make a free choice. Most of the time we're making choices because of circumstance, because of influence, because of the packaging, and so on and so forth. Hashem doesn't have this problem. Because ultimately, nothing can influence Hashem. Which means that if Hashem chooses something, it is a free choice. Nobody could sell Hashem a story, right? So if Hashem decides that he wants this nation to be his chosen nation, then that is his choice. Or at least it should be. Because if you have a look at the story of the Jewish people before the giving of the Torah, which is a story of a very small group of people, and a small group of outstanding people, Abraham, Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, Rachel and Leah, the 12 tribes, these are exceptional people. And every one of those people in their story has gone through a process of dedication to Hashem, exceptional dedication to Hashem. So whether it's leaving home at an advanced age and restarting your life, whether it's taking your son up a mountain to sacrifice, whether it's battling infertility and still being dedicated to Hashem, whether it's having to leave home because your brother wants to kill you, but still setting up a home that is totally focused on all the right values, whichever story it is, there are stories of exceptional dedication to Hashem. So at that point, the fact that Hashem says, these are my people, this is my nation, you have to free my nation, or the fact that he says, this is my firstborn son, when you read all of those stories, it actually sounds That's not that Hashem chose them to be his people. When you read those stories, it sounds like they convinced Hashem that they're valuable because they did good things that revolutionized the world and that were very spiritually oriented, etc. So before the Torah was given, the fact that Hashem favors that family, they weren't even a nation yet, and he says, these are my people, and this is my firstborn son, that does not yet tell us that Hashem has chosen them. That just tells us that, if you wish, Hashem is like hedging his bets. These are the people worth investing in. These are the people worth protecting, because look what a good job they've done up until now. When the Jews stand at the foot of Mount Sinai, we know who those Jews are, standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. They've just spent 200 years as slaves in Egypt. And while they were slaves in Egypt, they lost almost all of their sense of connection to Hashem. The only things that they retained, we're told, is language, their fashion, right, wearing Jewish clothes, and their names. But when it gets, for example, the sages tell us, when it gets to the splitting of the sea, and Hashem wants to save the Jews and drown the Egyptians, the angels protest and they say, we don't get it. This group, i.e. the Jews, they're idolaters, and that group, i.e. the Egyptians, they're idolaters. How come you're saving these idolaters and you're drowning those idolaters? What does that tell you, that moment? That tells you Hashem is now making a choice. This is not because of who you are and how much you impress me and how spectacular you are. This is because I am deciding these are the people I want. Not because they've achieved something. Not because they're inspiring. Because I'm choosing it. So that's the moment, that process between the exodus from Egypt and arriving at Mount Sinai, and especially when Hashem declares it at Mount Sinai, that's Hashem saying, I choose these people because I choose these people. Many years ago, you may or may not remember it, BMW had a tagline on all of their marketing. The tagline was, maybe they still have it, I don't know. The tagline was, I want it because I want it, which is essentially free choice. In other words, this choice is not a testimony to how great you are. Rather, it's an expression of who I am. I want this. So that's telling you who I am. I live for this. I care about this. I've chosen this. I've invested in this. Rather than, you're so spectacular, it's worth investing in you. So, the moment of the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, which becomes then the theme of the holiday of Shavuos, is the moment of the free choice Hashem made to have the Jewish people as his people. And because it's a free choice, which is not a matter of any external influence, not a matter of us proving a point or achieving something, it's a matter of Hashem making that choice. Therefore, that is a moment where Hashem expresses to us who he really is. Because when you illustrate your deepest choices, you're sharing your deepest self. In other words, this is the part of me that nobody else can touch. Nobody else can influence. So it must be the real me. So the moment of the giving of the Torah is this expression of the real me of God, the essence of Hashem. Now, a beautiful thing happens at that point. Any relationship is reciprocal, which means if somebody is going to keep you at arm's length, the chances are you'll keep them at arm's length. If somebody will be vulnerable and open with you, there is more likelihood that you'll be vulnerable and open with them. So if Hashem chooses us, and in doing so expresses that this is part of who I am, not just something that you have done. This is who I am as Hashem. I am somebody who has invested in the Jewish people because I choose to. That's going to cause a reciprocal response from the Jewish nation. So what did the Jewish nation do at the foot of Mount Sinai? They say, Na'aseh v'nishma. Na'aseh v'nishma means we choose to follow you even though we don't yet know what that entails. In other words, you haven't sold me the product. You haven't explained to me what this is. You haven't inspired me. You haven't shown me. But I'm choosing it anyway. I'm in anyway.
Makes actually not good salesman.
Yeah, exactly. The best kind of salesman, right? Where you right? So the moment of Mount Sinai is, on the one hand, the moment of Hashem choosing us without favor, without bias. Well, it's extreme bias, I suppose. because it's this is what I want, and you can't convince me otherwise. And as a result of that, we dedicate ourselves to Hashem by choosing what Hashem wants, whether or not it speaks to us, makes sense to us, will enhance our lives. All of that is irrelevant. We're not engaging our Judaism because of an external value that it will bring to our lives. We're engaging our Judaism because it's actually an expression of who we are at the core of our being. So it's the deepest moment of relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. Hashem says, you know who I am? I'm the one who chooses you. And the Jews are saying, you know who we are? We are the ones who choose you. This is the moment of an expression of the essence of who we are. Now, that tells you that the theme of Shavuos is the theme of the core of what the whole Jewish experience is about. And that core is that the Jewish experience is the depths of Hashem and the depths of our soul. The part of Hashem that is, so to speak, beyond the rational basis. So in other words, he didn't choose us because it made sense. He chose us because he wanted to choose us. And our relationship with Hashem is beyond the rational basis, which means we are dedicated to our Judaism even when we don't know why. Which, by the way, is part of the Jewish experience. Through the whole of our history, we always have people who somehow show dedication to their Judaism without necessarily knowing why. To put it differently, and this will be the nugget of information that's relevant for us to now start answering all the questions that we had yesterday. So to put it differently, the moment of the giving of the Torah is the core of everything about Judaism, rather than one aspect of the experience of Judaism. So for example, Pesach is an aspect, the story of Exodus. And Sukkot is an aspect, the joy of knowing that Hashem is protecting you. Shavuos is not an aspect, it's the core of the whole of Judaism. What is the whole of Judaism? It is an essence connection between Hashem and us, and between us and Hashem. That will help us to answer all of our questions, which please God will do next time.